If the mass of people understood what I've just told you, then they would not allow this kind of deficit spending, and they would demand that taxes be raised on corporations and the rich because they have evaded their share of taxes for many years, and because they are the richest and therefore most able to pay to get out. But my guess is we're not going to solve this problem until it blows up. And if you ask me, when will it blow up? I can't answer that question, because that's a question really of when does capitalism run out of its mechanisms to stay in power? I think that capitalism is declining everywhere in the world, with the exceptions, perhaps, of Asia. The best way to understand these issues is to be historical in your approach. And the history of capitalism should be understood as the history of movement, of change, of relocation of capitalist industry, because that has been the reality from the beginning. If we date the origin of modern capitalism in England in the 17th and 18th century, then obviously we know the story of relocation, because England is now empty of most capitalist industry. It has left England and moved elsewhere. Initially, it moved from England to Western Europe. From Western Europe, it moved to the United States, to North America. It moved to Japan. And eventually it moved everywhere in the sense of colonialism and imperialism. That were the last 4 or 5 centuries have been basically the story of capitalism spreading, relocating. And I particularly want to focus on the center, the dynamic center of capitalism. Because, for example, even though capitalism relocated its center out of Britain, it still left capitalism in Britain, but it wasn't the dynamic growth center of capitalism. That has not been British for over a century at this point. We know where the center of capitalism went, because we know that the British Empire declined in the 19th and 20th century, and the American Empire rose, particularly in the 20th century, and it became the dominant, explosive growth center. And by that I mean where GDP grows quickly, where huge numbers of people leave agriculture and move from rural to urban, move from farm work to industrial work. We can see where the dynamic center of capitalism has relocated. And now comes my important point, I think. Over the last 30, 40 years, we have seen the latest relocation of the dynamic center of capitalist industry and growth. It has left Western Europe, it has left North America, and it has left Japan. And it has gone, above all, to the People's Republic of China, but also to places like India and Brazil and Vietnam and other parts of the world. But it has left the old part. And that is how capitalism has always worked. It has always relocated following where profits were the greatest.